a great country. It's got its problems, though, and I'm aware of that. And if you live in Jackson, Mississippi, go to the tap and turn on the cold water with a glass, and you'll be right there with me. And we have the same thing with a lot of native reserves in Canada here, where they don't have clean drinking water and things like that. And it's like the land is cursed almost, hey? But let's talk about, because I'm a proponent of Alberta joining the union, cutting ties with Canada. I think it would be a better deal economically and just all around. What are the disadvantages? You talked about healthcare, Greg. That's the number one thing that used to come up all the time when I talked about it. What about the free healthcare? I'll have to pay when I go to the doctor's office. That's crumbling. That's going away. Your thoughts, Greg?
When you talk about education, because the Alberta 51 issue is just education. Let's talk. Let's go point by point through the issues. Medicare is one, border security is another, law enforcement another. Let's go through the issues. And honestly, Mike, you know me. I sit at the 100,000-foot view in so many ways. I've got a chapter in my book about healthcare and stuff, and I'm sitting back, and here's what I want to say to people of Alberta. Okay, this is the toughest thing. It's the toughest thing for people to understand. In case you don't know, Alberta has got a lot of money, because they have a lot of oil, gas, and natural resources. Okay, now take a step back, Alberta. Assuming that you're not giving away all your Christmas presents to your friends and family, meaning sending equalization money back east. There's plenty of money back east, too, folks. Quebec and their natural resources, their hydroelectric, on and on. Alberta has so much money that if they became the 51st state of the United States, they would be able to, quote, keep their own oil revenues. And everyone can argue. You'll hear arguments, of course, from Ottawa, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it'll be a few years of lawsuits or whatever, mitigation. But the attorneys in the U.S. would love to fight those lawsuits, because it's going to be U.S. attorneys if you've got the 51st state protecting you. It's going to be military if it's available for you. But on the healthcare front, I think Alberta healthcare, think about this. Remember, we talked draft your own constitution, create your own healthcare system. It's called Alberta Healthcare. And I see it, and I wrote about this in the book. Easiest solution in the world it is number one, to go to a free market-based type of model, and you simply get your medical card just like your Quebec Medicare card or the old OHIP card in Ontario. You get your card, and basically what you have as a 51st Alberta citizen is cradle to grave coverage. At worst, a possible small copay, maybe $10, $20, but it's cradle to grave, just like the perception is in Canada, Mike, except it actually delivers the care. The care that you'd get in the U.S., the care that you'd get because of technology and speed. Again, MRIs down here, Mike, come on, man. MRIs are maybe a day or two out tops. MRIs. Say what you will about the U.S. healthcare. There's just incredible care for, I think, 85% of Americans.
Okay, so hang on. We're looking for disadvantages, and you haven't given me one so far. But
here we go. Okay.
But you brought up MRIs.
Right.
Okay. So
Right.
Back in 2013, I was on the Genesis Communications Network hosting a show for a doctor in Chicago where we explored non-drug and surgery healthcare options, right? And so medical interventions and so forth. That was one disadvantage to the U.S. system, okay? Because in a lot of states, what they will do is schedule you for a lot of unnecessary testing, MRIs when it's not needed, blood work when it's not needed, lab work, things like that, just to pad the bill and break the bank to where you have to sell the farm, or you think you do, in order to stay alive for another 10 seconds. So that is one disadvantage, whereas in the Canadian healthcare system, they don't do that.
Right. And, on the disadvantage side,
yes,
they said, I really sat back in the commercial break, thought about that too, and honestly, here's the way I see it. Number one, the only disadvantage I see, if technically disadvantage I see, is really it's really on the emotional side or the sentimental side. because there are simply people that love Canada and don't want to leave Canada and don't want to see it.
I have no sentimental feelings toward Canada whatsoever.
I think that's growing. I think that's growing sentiment too, Mike. You should hear what I hear behind the scenes with folks from all over Western Canada. I went from BC the other day. I'm going, God, mega millionaire businessman hates Canada with an H. With an H. Because it's so difficult to do business and so forth. But so one is the emotional side. The other, and this is it's not an odd way to look at it, but it's just kind of a clinical way to look at it, is if folks up there, and I totally respect this in any way, because again, I'm half Canadian, Mike. I'm a half breed like you.
You're bi.
Yeah. That's right. But I see it as, if there are things, I really mean this, if there are things in Canada's Charter of Rights that you really love, and I mean, and not even being cynical, but if you don't mind, the gun confiscation or things being illegal, if you don't mind certain, heavy regulations, the way they sit within the Canadian Charter of Rights, if there's, whether it's, and I won't get into the laundry list, but landlord tenant laws, whatever, so much regulation. If you really like that, it's entirely possible that you lose that.
Right.
By Alberta becoming a state, because Alberta, as the 51st state, will be able to draft their own constitution, and they will, I'll give you 99.99% odds on this, will include a Second Amendment or format thereof, Mike, period. So if you don't like the Second Amendment, that's a big disadvantage to become the 51st state.
That's funny because, it's funny you say all this, because Matthew Willis over in the American